Hi, everyone. Today we're going to go ahead and review cell communication. So, what I want you guys to do first is go ahead and take a look at these illustrations. So, we have different types of intra or intercellular signaling, single cell phones, so cell to cell. And then we have this here, which is our larger cell communication. All right, so if you have this slide, please don't write this down. So let's look at human to human communication. How do we communicate? So, how would you tell a friend across the room about a party tonight that you don't want others to know about, but you want to tell them before class is over? So, go ahead and think in your head. How would you tell them? Question 2. What would be the most efficient way for Mrs. G to remind everyone of the test next Tuesday? Question 3. How would a counselor notify each person if he wants to give them an application for all seniors who are applying for early college admissions? And 4. How would you get the word out to the community of a fundraiser you are putting on next week? So there's a lot of ways in which we can communicate. You can call the person on the phone. You can send emails. We can use social media. We can write notes. We can use hand gestures. We can tell one person to tell someone else. You can tell the person next to you. There's a lot of ways in which we use to communicate. It's the same reason our cells communicate as well. Cells need to communicate with each other to tell what's going on inside of your systems. So if we look at our cellular internet, cell-to-cell communication is absolutely essential for multicellular organisms, such as us. Our cells need to communicate. Nerve cells must communicate pain signals to muscle cells in order for muscle cells to initiate a response to pain. So if we look at this person here, we can see that something happened in her calf. So maybe she's running and she got a cramp. Okay. Now, the nerve signals then are going to signal her brain to do some sort of reaction. So if you have a cramp, I want you guys to think, what would you do if you had a cramp in your calf? I'm hoping you said that you would probably stop whatever it is that you are doing and possibly rub it out, right? So that is going to be our response. That would be our response. So the stimulus is going to be pain. The response is going to be what we do to react to it. That would be to stop or to rub it out. So biologists have discovered some universal mechanisms of cellular regulation. So some universal mechanisms of basically how cells communicate. Yeast cells identify their mates by cell signaling. So this is an early evidence of cell signaling. So if I look at evolutionary times, we look at these yeast cells and notice that there's 3 different mechanisms of how they identify their mates. So the first thing they do is they exchange of mating factors. So each cell type secretes a mating factor that binds to the receptors on the other cell type. So remember right here, we're looking at the cell membrane level. So one's going to send a signal to the receptor on the other side. Mating, binding the factors to receptors induces changes in the cells that lead to their fusion or lead to them obviously getting together. And then we have a new AA cell. So the nucleus of the fused cell includes all of the genes from the A and the A cells, as we hear. So from the purple and the pink, and now we have a new cell. Okay, almost like us. So these are known as signal transduction pathways. And in the signal transduction pathways, we convert the signal on a cell surface into cellular responses. So we receive the signal at the cell membrane level, as we see here, and then we convert that into some sort of cellular response. What do we want the cell to do? These are similar in microbes and mammals, suggesting that there's an early origin. So there's an importance as to why this mechanism has been conserved over time. All right, methods used by cells to communicate. So as we said, we have cell-to-cell communication. Cell signaling uses chemical messengers. So let's look at number 1, local signaling. If I think of the term local, I think of a short distance, okay? This aids in cell-to-cell recognition, and we have local regulators such as paracrine and sympathetic types of signals, such as growth factors or our neurotransmitters. So local signaling is a short distance. One example would be cell-to-cell recognition. So we want to see what is us versus what is not us. Obviously, if you guys don't know, we breathe in a whole lot of different molecules every day, right? Bacteria, there's spores, viruses. And so our body wants to recognize what is friendly and what is not, okay? We have long distance signaling, which we use hormones to signal our cells to make something, okay? To make something. Let's look at local and long distance signaling. So cells in a multicellular organism communicate via chemical messengers. We send out chemicals for our cells to communicate. Obviously, our cells don't have, they don't speak English. They recognize what to do through these chemicals. A hormone is a chemical released by a cell in one part of the body that sends out messages that affect cells in other parts of the organism. All multicellular organisms produce hormones, as we know. So plant hormones are also called phytohormones, and hormones in animals are often transported in the blood. So one of the hormones that you guys are most familiar with would be insulin, right? Insulin helps the body uptake sugar into our system. So insulin allows the body to take sugar in. So animal and plant cells have cell junctions that directly connect the cytoplasm of adjacent cells. So here's our gap junction as we see here. So here's cell 1, cell 2, and they're connected here by this gap junction. Same thing as we see here between these plant cells. Okay, so they're able to communicate one-on-one right next to each other, like with their elbow partner, so to speak. In local signaling, animal cells may communicate via direct contact. So here's one cell, here's the other cell, and as we could see, these two cells may communicate by an interaction between the molecules protruding from their surface. So let's say, for example, you get a cut on your system, okay, or on your skin. So if you get a cut, now your cells have been ripped apart from their neighbors. So your cells are then going to submit signals to each other around saying, hey, we need to make copies of ourselves so that we can go ahead and close up that cut that we just received. So it'll be like our local signaling. Why? Because the signal's only going to stay within that area of the cut. Your cell's not going to send a signal to other parts of your body to make cells. It's only going to signal the area where the cut is present. In other cases, animal cells communicate using local regulators, or they only work over a short distance as we see. So notice here we have the paracrine signaling as well as sympathetic signaling. So these are local signaling cues. So let's look what that means. So for A in the paracrine signaling, a secreting cell acts on nearby target cells by discharging molecules of a local regulator, such as growth factor, for example, into the extracellular fluid. So this here would be an example of like mitosis, right? Like I said, you got a cut, now your body needs to send signals to the cells around it so that it also tells them that they should divide, okay? In a sympathetic signaling, a nerve cell releases a neurotransmitter molecule into synapse, which is going to stimulate the target cell. So for example, someone pinches you, right? That pinch then is going to send this electrical nerve signal along the nerve cell, which triggers the release of this neurotransmitter. And in this instance, it'll target your cell, which will then target you to move your arm, or you'll react to it. You'll probably say, ouch. Okay, you're not going to just stay there and allow for that signal or for that person to continue pinching you, right? Because you're going to start getting these signals telling you that hurts. All right, sometimes we have to do long distance signaling, such as using hormones. So both plants and animals use hormones. For example, would be insulin, as we said, insulin. So the signal to produce insulin comes as we said, from our pancreas, and then it gets released into our bloodstream. So as we see here, here's our long distance signaling. Here's our endocrine cell. And what's going to happen is it's going to send the signal or the hormone to be released into the blood vessel. The hormone then is going to travel into the bloodstream to our target cells, so across the body. Okay, so specialized endocrine cells secrete hormones into body fluids, often the blood, and then the hormones may reach virtually all body cells, right? So this here would be an example of long distance signaling, Okay, so an example, like we said, is insulin. So when your body releases insulin, it doesn't release it in just one area. It fully gets transported through the blood vessels throughout your entire body, throughout the entire body. All right, there's 3 stages of cell signaling. It was put together by Earl Sutherland in 1971. And what he did was he discovered how the hormone epinephrine acts on the cells. Epinephrine. Epinephrine, you guys, is the fight or flight hormone. Okay, the fight or flight hormone. So I want you guys to think of a time in which you've gotten like really, really scared. Okay, so let's say you're walking and somebody jumps in front of you and like scares you, like, boo. Okay, how is your body going to react? I want you to think when you're really scared and somebody scares you, how do you react? Now, that reaction is innate, meaning like your body's going to react without you thinking. Okay. So, usually when you are afraid or someone has scared you, your body goes into super alert because epinephrine gets released. Okay. You are either going to fight or flight or run. So, you're going to either fight or you're going to notice that you're in danger and you're going to run. Now, epinephrine is a hormone that's also going to help the release of your body to release sugar. Why would I want to release sugar right away when I get scared? Well, because my body's telling me that I need to run. Running requires energy. Energy is found in glucose, which makes ATP. Okay. So Sutherland suggested that cells receiving signals went through 3 processes: reception, transduction, and response. You have to know these 3 words. Please, you guys know these 3: reception, transduction, and response. And this is part of cell signaling. Okay. It's called the signal transduction pathway. And what it does is it converts the signals on the cell surface or the cell's membrane into a cellular response. So the message gets received, and then what does your cell do with that messages? How's it going to respond to it? So these are similar in microbes and mammals that are suggesting, like we said, an early origin. All right, signal molecules and receptor proteins, as we said. Receptor proteins recognize the signal molecule. So recognition occurs when the signal binds to a specific site on the receptor because it is the complementary in shape. So like we said, your body has thousands and thousands of different types of receptor proteins located around the cell membrane. Now that receptor is going to receive a specific molecule. Okay, it's almost like the enzyme, like that lock and key. So that molecule has to fit perfectly within the receptor. All right, the other term you have to know is this word right here, ligand. Okay, ligand or ligand, depending on who's talking. And basically what ligands are, they are small molecules that bind specifically to a larger molecule. They attach to the receptor protein, and the receptor typically undergoes a change in the shape. This may activate the receptor so that it can interact with the molecules. I want you guys just to know that the ligand is the message. So a ligand can be a hormone, a ligand can be a specific molecule, but the ligand is the message. The ligand is the message, okay? And this ligand is going to bind to the receptor. Let's take a look. So here we go here. Here's the overview of cell signaling. Here's my signal molecule or my ligand. It will attach to the receptor. Notice that this here is on the cell membrane. So when it attaches, this is known as reception, okay? Once it attaches here, it's going to change the shape of the receptor. As it changes, it then does a conformational change, which is going to submit the signal, which is called our transduction pathway. And in the transduction pathway, it's going to relay molecules in a signal transduction pathway. So it's going to make certain molecules, and then these molecules here are then going to tell the body what it needs to do. What's the response? So it'll activate cellular response. And this here occurs in the cytoplasm of your cells. All right, reception. Reception occurs when a signal molecule, like we said, which is a ligand, binds to receptor protein, causing it to change shape. So once the ligand attaches to the receptor, it changes shape. The receptor protein is on the cell surface. The binding between the signal molecule, which is the ligand, and the receptor is highly specific. As we said, it's like an enzyme, right? The shape has to fit. A conformational change in the receptor is often the initial transduction of the signal. So, like I said, once the ligand attaches to the receptor, it's then going to change the shape. As it changes the shape, it then starts this transduction pathway. Transduction is the binding of the signal molecule, which alters the receptor protein in some way. The signal usually starts a cascade of reactions. Cascade meaning a series of different reactions, known as the signal transduction pathway. And it's a multi-step pathway that can amplify a signal. Amplifying meaning like it can make a lot of it. Okay, so as we see here in this transduction pathway, it goes from one to the other to the other. Finally, the response. What's the cell going to do? So cell signaling leads to the regulation of cytoplasmic activities or transcription. Signaling pathways regulate a variety of cellular activities. So is it going to tell the cell to make something in transcription, or is it going to cause the cell to release something? Okay. And there's a variety of different things that the cell can do. There's a variety of different things that the cell can do. All right, the example of the pathway. So let's take, for example, our steroid hormones. So your body's making a steroid hormone, such as growth hormone. So think of growth hormone, right? Growth hormone is turned on and off at certain points of our lives, right? It doesn't stay on forever because we don't grow forever. All right. Now, let's take a look. The steroid hormone testosterone passes through the plasma membrane. So testosterone would be the ligand in this example. The ligand then is going to attach to the protein receptor as we see here. As this protein receptor changes shape, testosterone binds, like we said, to the receptor protein in the cytoplasm, activating it. Now, the hormone receptor complex enters the nucleus and binds to a specific gene. So now this information needs to go inside of the nucleus, which will then activate the gene. Okay? The bound protein stimulates transcription. So transcription is DNA to RNA, okay, of the gene into RNA. The mRNA is then translated in a specific protein, which is going to tell the body what it needs to make. So in this instance, testosterone, or the hormone, will then attach, as I said, to the receptor. That information then gets transducted or transduced, and then it relays into the nucleus. It will then turn this gene on. Once this gene gets read, it does transcription, or transcription gets turned on. So it goes DNA to RNA. RNA then is going to attach to the ribosome, and it's going to make this new protein. So this actually is telling the cell to make something, to make a protein. That is the message that was received. Other pathways regulate genes by activating transcription factors that turn genes on or off, as we said with our growth factor. Okay, so certain factors turn on a hormone, as we said, or turn on the cell. So here's growth factor, and here's our receptor. As long as this growth factor is attached to the receptor, it's going to send this signal telling the cell that it will continue to grow and grow and grow and grow. Just think of like a puppy, right? So a puppy is going to have a whole lot of growth factor. Eventually, once this ligand or this growth factor is no longer attached to the receptor, then it will tell the body, or it will tell the organism that it needs to stop growth. It will need to stop growth. All right, termination of the signal. When does the signal stop? So the signal response is terminated quickly by the reversal of the ligand binding. So as soon as there is no more ligand attached to the receptor, then the cell is going to stop doing whatever it was being told to do. And this is the example that you guys should have drawn. So this is the one that I wanted you guys to draw. So let's take a look at it again now. So I have the receptor. Here's my ligand. It binds to the signaling molecule, becomes activated, and initiates the transduction pathway. So this changes shape. The transduction pathway is a series of relay proteins that ends when a protein is activated. Now, if you see this on an exam, they're going to give you specific names of each of these proteins. Don't worry about it. All you have to worry about is this here is a signal. These are the names of the specific transduction pathway. It then in turn is going to tell the cell what it's going to do, which is going to be the response. So the response is the targeted protein that brings about a cellular response. What do you want the cell to do? Is it going to make a structure protein, meaning it's going to alter the shape of the or the movement of the cell? Is it going to tell the cell to make an enzyme, right? Or is it a gene regulatory protein, which is going to alter gene expression, meaning it's either going to turn the gene on or off, okay? So another good example of that would be making, we said our growth hormone for our gene regulatory protein. As long as the growth hormone is attached here, this here is going to be turned on. It's regulated. Once growth hormone is no longer available, then this gene gets shut off. Another example is drinking milk. I drink milk. My body's now going to send a signal to my cell to make the enzyme lactase, and then my body is able to break apart milk. Or I'm going to get a signal that's going to activate my cell to move for our structure proteins or move, obviously, our muscles. All right, guys, I would like for you to please watch this video, our intro to cell signaling. It is obviously a good little video. Amoeba Sisters does a great job of kind of making this subject a little bit more interesting. Okay. All right, hoping you all learned something new today.